and just have fun and be yourself.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I never know exactly when I start with the live streaming on this new technology, which is so awesome. So I will just, looks like I'm live, I think. So hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. So as you know, or maybe you don't know if this is your first time seeing me, I've been trying to go live at least once a day just to, connect with people and bring you interesting speakers and topics. And very often it's plant-based doctors, but it's also other people that you may not have heard of. And last week we had a Reiki practitioner and plant-based cookbook author on named Jocelyn Grave. And there was a lot of interest in what she did. And people keep emailing me and asking, well, how do I get Reiki? And they can't touch you now. What do you do? So I'm bringing on my personal Reiki guru who Charles and I have been seeing for like since 2005, at least 15 years, at least once a month, sometimes more. And she's fantastic. She's a Reiki practitioner and teacher and a sound healer and one of my favorite people in the world, and is responsible, along with Dr. Doug Lyle, for keeping me sane in an unsane world and calming my nervous system. And she's going to actually talk a little bit about what Reiki is and how we can get it remotely now, and show us some sound healing and show us some really cool places that we can get some free YouTubes for these things that are really so good for us, especially right now while people are so anxious. And if you did watch my television show that I had about 5 years ago called Healthy Living with Chef AJ, that aired on Foodie TV, it's now on YouTube, all for free. She was a guest on episode 107 and she helped me make a pie. So please welcome Ananda Prohs.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, AJ. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you for this opportunity.
I'm so happy that you're able to do this. So a lot of people, the word Reiki is new to them and they don't know what it is or where to get it. So talk a little bit about what it is you do and why it might be so beneficial for people right now while people are on high anxiety, and how they can get it, especially because right now you aren't supposed to touch anybody.
Sure, sure. So Reiki is it's a kind of an umbrella word for a practice of healing that you do use with your hands. Usually the practitioner or healer can work off or on the body, but it also can be used remotely or from a distance because it's all energy. It's all using that life force energy, which is ki or chi. And it's that resonant energy of unified light and unconditional love that is the source of all of life. And so what the practitioner does is acts as a conduit or a channel for that pure energy to come through. And then it moves however it needs to move on the body. So there's really no, there can be intention, there can be a focus or something that the client wishes to address, such as a physical or maybe an emotional imbalance. And yet at the same time, the person who is the practitioner is holding space that whatever is in the highest good of the client is received, and what is not needed or what needs to just kind of dissipate can go ahead and clear as necessary. So it's really more about allowing for deep levels of relaxation and for a sense of being held, a sense of being contained in a safe space, so that the person who's receiving Reiki can kind of have an experience of quieting and slowing down. A lot of people end up falling asleep because it is so relaxing. So it's, yeah, and then the effects of that can last for several days, weeks, months. And it's always nice to get a little tune up for some people like you. And I really appreciate our longstanding relationship. It's definitely helped me so much, as you have been my food guru and my expert and wonderful client who always feeds me such delicious things at every session. So
Well, God,
yeah.
it's my pleasure. I mean, Ananda's name is Ananda, which I believe is Sanskrit for bliss. Is that correct?
Yes. So I was given the name by my father at birth. He was really interested in meditation, specifically the transcendental movement with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and the Beatles and all of that. So at birth, he decided to give that name to me. It means heavenly bliss. And as a child, I was introduced to meditation at 3, and then again as a sitting meditator at 10. And I also attended university where it was called Maharishi University of Management in Fairfield, Iowa. and I studied Ayurvedic medicine there. So that was my first introduction into the healing arts in general. And then, of course, having meditation as part of my kind of foundation, you could say, really helped me to understand that we are all energy, that essentially, whether it be sound vibration or color or light or food or our human body itself, the organs that work within us and our nervous system, all of it is running on pure energy. So
what's amazing is, like, your name is Ananda, and I always call her marijuana Ananda, because not that I've ever really, smoked pot or anything. I mean, I did try it once and it was an accidental. I didn't even know it was in the cookie that somebody gave me, but it is so relaxing. It's like anesthesia, but not without the side effects. And whenever I have a session, I get literally the deepest rejuvenation and recharge. And for those of you that feel this is like woo woo, I just want you to know, like I said to the last Reiki practitioner I had on, if it's so woo woo, how come every hospital, and I've been volunteering for 30 years doing pet therapy, every hospital I volunteer at has Reiki, and especially in the cancer center. So talk a little about that, because I know you also volunteer at the hospital doing Reiki.
yes, so it's another way that nurses have been able to connect to it is through a program called Hands-On Healing, but Reiki is the method that comes from Japan via Hawaii. So that was how it was introduced to the US. It was a Japanese woman who lived in Hawaii who brought it from Japan. And so it's a relatively new modality as far as the West itself. I think it's only been in hospitals since maybe the early 2000s. But there's some hospitals that really encourage all of their nurses to train in Reiki as well. And I have found some great effects when going. I tell people who've never experienced it before to just have an open mind as much as possible and have no expectations of a particular outcome. Just, be as neutral as you possibly can, and then whatever comes forward in the present moment is a gift, And for some people, it can be really activating, or it can kind of stir up some things as well. There's some people that are confronted by human touch or a little bit uncomfortable with that, and so we can always start a little bit off the body, or just kind of sending that intention that they get, again, whatever they need, without necessarily having to physically touch and cross that boundary for them. But for the most part, it's what I say is it's a very passive and relaxing way of receiving love, of receiving some sense of attention and awareness from another person.
Oh, your sound just went. Your sound just went. Let's see, hold on. There we go. You're muted now for some reason.
I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, that's something touch. Okay, perfect. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, you went. So yeah, if you guys are familiar with what Dr. Doug Lisle talks about in The Perfect Personality, and how one of the points is openness to experience, those of you that are not open to experience might not want to try this, but those of you that are, I really encourage you to find a practitioner near you, and hopefully Ananda will tell us how to find that. I mean, her client list is the who's who's of Hollywood. She can't tell you that, but a lot of people get Reiki, and it's just not something that people really talk about, because unless they're in the the more of the, the natural healing kind of movement kind of thing.
Yeah, it is considered alternative care. But there are lots of ways. You can actually do a search on Google, just your area, whatever your town is, and Reiki practitioners. They usually do have websites of their own. I don't. I know this is kind of silly, but I've always kept myself pretty private and introverted, and so I do not have a personal or business website. I am available through Facebook, though, if you want to be my friend. But I know that a lot of other Reiki practitioners, especially those that have their own space or are willing to travel to people's homes with their table, would have their own website available. And then there's lots and lots of resources on YouTube as well. Believe it or not, quite a few people, if you just Google the word Reiki, R-E-I-K-I, you will find so many things with healing music and people talking about Reiki, people offering Reiki through the video. So it's a fun way to kind of just start to explore and connect through those mediums.
Pam is saying, I'm trying to find a way to do it for my dog who is sick. So can a human Reiki healer also be an animal Reiki healer? Is it the same process? And how long did it take you to learn this? And how does one decide I'm going to be a Reiki practitioner when I grow up?
Oh, these are good questions. Um, so I would say first and foremost, Pam, yes, you can definitely do Reiki on your pets. They actually usually don't need it as long as human beings. For whatever reason, I've found that over the years, when I do a little bit of Reiki here and there on mostly dogs and cats, which are the pets of my clients, but I have had the opportunity to give it to horses and cows and even to an ostrich one time. And so it usually takes just a few minutes because animals are much more sensitive and attuned to their own energy and to that light frequency of healing energy that Reiki offers. So it can just be a few more minutes of concentrated awareness, whether it be directly on the place that is in pain or having trouble like hips or things like that, or even just off the body. Again, sometimes I do it when my dog is sleeping next to me, and I just kind of, instead of disturbing them and placing my hand, I'll just do it maybe about an inch above, and that usually is a nice passive way for them to receive it. As far as where you can learn it, there are, again, probably in your local area or within a particularly close distance, if you're in a smaller town, there would be people who are practitioners and also those that can give attunements. And an attunement is when a Reiki practitioner who has had a lot of experience and has gone through the training of all the different levels to mastery, is able to transmit that healing energy through the intention and give it or offer it to the individual who wishes to practice it. And then for me personally, my training was pretty quick. I learned level 1 and level 2 in short succession. And so level 1 Reiki is when you're learning just the first, let's say, energy or foundational principle of Reiki, and then you're practicing it on yourself. So the idea is that you are giving yourself Reiki every day for about 30 days before you go to the next level, which is level 2, where you can then start to send energy to other people, or animals or places. Sometimes I like to do house and business clearing and cleansing ceremonies that also involve Reiki to help kind of clear and uplift the energy in a particular space or piece of property. So those are the fundamentals, and then you would be able to progress from there, and you can do level 3 and mastery. And then they also have Karuna Reiki, and I've heard of Fire Reiki, and there's all kinds of other expansions on Reiki itself. So it can take, about, I would say, anywhere between, let's say, 2 to 6 months until you can feel comfortable enough to start to practice and offer it, let's say, for a fee. Most people start or learn Reiki so that they can do it for themselves and their loved ones. And, it took me, I would say, probably about a year or so before I actually started to integrate it as part of my business.
I want to read a nice comment from Louise from Brooklyn. So glad you're doing this today, a strong believer. And Judy says, 40 years ago, my roommate was a nurse and was learning hands-on healing. I was her practice patient. It was great. I'm so glad that you knew it and wanted to do it. So are there ever any contraindications to receiving Reiki? Like someone said, Leslie says, will it help if you have a metal plate from surgery in your body part?
Absolutely can help. As far as I'm aware, there are no contraindications because it is such a passive and gentle form of healing. I would say, again, it's more about the person's comfort level. So if she was feeling a little bit awkward about having someone placing their hands right where the metal is, where the device has been implanted, I would, just work off the body a little bit. Also, some people can experience discomfort that comes up naturally. It can kind of float around or move at different times. And so we work with that in the middle of the session, and we're present to whatever may come up. It's not always relaxing as much as that can definitely be part of the experience too. You know, sometimes healing can be a little bit uncomfortable, but for the most part, it's such a gentle form of healing and of holding someone that there are no contraindications as far as I'm aware.
Great. Dina says, I once received it for free and found it very relaxing. When I get it, I go so deep. It's like I wake up as if like Rip Van Winkle, as if I've slept for 100 years. It's the deepest relaxation that I get, and my nervous system really needs it. Carol says, I would like to teach Reiki. I'm on level 3. What would you suggest doing next?
Oh, great. Well, I just want to echo and respond that yes, it is. I call it the sleep of 1,000 dreams, because you actually go to a deeper place. I think that um, the mind completely shuts off, and usually the body can just go into this restoring and replenishing space and completely soak in that energy. And so most people that do fall asleep comment on just how deep and how restful that sleep feels. So I'm so glad you had that experience. And then as far as teaching it, as far as getting started teaching it, I would say the best way to go about it is to start structuring or thinking about a lesson plan, let's say, just like you would design anything that you wanted to teach. So I started with a dear friend of mine, Michael Reynolds, teaching several years ago. In fact, AJ was one of our students. Thank you so much. And what we did was we just started with the very basics. What would you need to know in order to start doing energy work? So one of the fundamental things that we talk about are the chakra systems. So you might want to start thinking about how you would teach the chakra systems and all of that. So it is important to have the principles of Reiki itself, as far as the symbols and how Reiki works and all of that. But then you also want to be able to talk to people about the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual effects that it can have on the body and the different body centers. And especially as a teacher, you know, you're just going to have to start as if all the students are in kindergarten, basically, and go very, very slowly initially. That's why I think in some respects it's very helpful to just start with level 1 and then have about a month of personal experience where you're only working on yourself, because so much can happen in that time. And then that individual also receives so much of their own personal healing and many kind of awakenings or different realizations that can happen during that time. But as a teacher, you can help to structure that a little bit and maybe give people some activities or some practical things that they can be doing during that time. I don't know. It would be really fun to kind of explore and think about how to design a class, especially online, you know, when you're not able to be with people in the room at the time, unfortunately, like we are right now. But yeah, it would be an exciting thing to start to compile that.
I wish you could like throw some Reiki at all of us watching, because the thing is, it's so subtle that people might not get it. But I don't mean to be a skeptic, because you know I'm a big believer in what you do, but I just can't understand how it can work remotely. Because if that's true, couldn't all the Reiki practitioners in the world get together and just heal this virus? I mean, could that happen?
So there are a lot of forums going on there, and in fact, some of you may be aware, it's not just about Reiki specifically, but quite a few people have had the idea of doing prayer circles or having an intention of holding, you know, loving, healing, excuse me, energy for a particular time, you know, gathering together wherever you are in the world and kind of synchronizing the time so that everyone is thinking the same thing at the same time, to create a ripple of an intention. And that is very powerful. I think that whether, you know, however many people, just even 1 or 2 people doing it at the same time, I think has an immense effect. And then exponentially so if the more people that can do that. So that would be one way that we could kind of gather collectively to bring our awareness and our prayers towards a rapid recovery and you know, rebalancing. But honestly, I actually think of this experience as a time for that anyway. I know that it's creating a lot of anxiety or worry for people, and there's a lot of uncertainty. But ultimately, if we look at what's happening in the environment, if we look at what's happening, you know, socially, as more and more people are calling their loved ones and connecting virtually like this, there is a coming together, and there is a community sense that we are all in this together, and that this is a really important time to actually be able to go inward. So I know I'm a little bit on a tangent here, but I do think of this as a great opportunity. And to be honest with you, I did set the room with some Reiki before we even got started. And so I feel like the Reiki energy has already been flowing this entire time. That's just me though.
Well, Gunther wants to know if insurance covers it.
Unfortunately, no, no, it's too bad, but we're not technically under the umbrella where allopathic medicine has accepted us. I practice out of a chiropractor's office, and there are other Reiki practitioners that work with acupuncturists and other, naturopathic doctors and things like that. So it's possible that you may be able to bill through that doctor's office. In that case, if the Reiki practitioner is an employee. But unfortunately, yeah, it's not normally covered.
They never pay for any of the stuff that I take in like
Yeah.
acupuncture or Reiki or anything like that. Carol says, do you need to complete the teaching level?
In order to start practicing on other people, I don't believe so. I think you can go, just the first two levels would be adequate enough to start working on other people or with other people. If you wanted to start teaching or leading groups, I would say, then that would be a benefit to actually go a little further.
Yeah. So you have added another tool to your tool belt recently, and it's something that I first experienced when I started teaching as a guest presenter at Rancho La Puerta, which is my favorite class there, crystal bowl or sound healing. And I see that you have some beautiful bowls in front of us. You're going to show us how they work, and you're going to give us a resource where we can get free online crystal or sound bowl healing. But first, talk a little bit about what that is and why that might be beneficial, especially during this time of high stress and anxiety for people.
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you. So sound healing is one modality that I've also incorporated into my practice. Many years ago, I was introduced to the frosted quartz crystal bowls, as well as the metal Tibetan sounding bowls, and also some tuning forks and various other tools that use sound as a form of healing. And the basic understanding is that sound vibration can be traveled or extended through material, including our bodies. So even if we're not able to perceive the sound through our ears, we are able to sense it through the skin and our bones and our various organs. Our human range is pretty limited. It's only about 20 sound wave cycles per second to about 2,000 sound wave cycles per second, or excuse me, 20,000. So from 20 to 20,000 sound wave cycles per second. That's what our human ears can perceive. But our physical bodies can actually perceive a much broader range. And the idea is that whether or not your ear is picking it up, the tones of the music and the harmony that's created with the sound itself is carried through the cells of the body and helps to create a harmony or an entrainment, which allows for the healing to take place cellularly. So these bowls in particular are made by a company in the US called Crystal Tones. They're based in Utah. All of the bowls are 99.9% clear quartz crystal, which is harvested from the same place in North Carolina. And then these particular bowls are called alchemy bowls because they contain a mixture of precious minerals or gemstones or metals that have a different vibrational frequency, which helps to amplify and create a different level of healing. Each of my bowls has a different tone, which I can play for you now. So the first bowl is a C note. It's a lower note for the root chakra. It's going to hit at the base of the spine and move the energy down the legs and into the earth. This bowl is called the Laughing Buddha because it is invoking the energy of that deep belly laugh and of feeling that sense of joy and creativity and flow and being allowed to connect that into the earth itself. This next bowl that I have is called the Grandmother Bowl. She is at the note of F, the heart center. And she's actually a very special bowl to me. This is the first alchemy bowl that I received as a gift. I actually went on an amazing retreat this past summer with my mother, and we went to Glastonbury, England. That's where I met the wonderful woman, Geraldine Glass, who is my mentor. So I actually want to give a lot of credit to her, and also invite you guys to check out her website, which is crystalcadence.com. And also you can go to YouTube and Geraldine Glass, Geralyn Glass, Glass. She has free crystal bowl meditations every Tuesday. She posts up, she calls them Tune Up Tuesdays. And her crystal bowl studio in LA is incredible. She has over 300 individual bowls just like this. Each one is very unique and has their own special alchemy. And so in every meditation, she'll do a different set. Some of them are for particular intentions, such as heart healing or for elevating the spirit or for relaxing. But the general principle is always the same, that the sound is a very passive and gentle way for your body to start to relax and replenish and go into deeper levels of a meditation state without necessarily having to use a mantra. And that the way that the sound works is it helps to create a coherence between the left and right hemispheres of the brain, and also to help that circulation of chi throughout the whole body. So getting back to my special grandmother bowl here, I actually went to the retreat, which was called Sing Your Soul Song. It was hosted by an amazing healer named Neelam Minocha, who also does channel work, and you can see her on YouTube as well. Neelam is her first name, and Minocha, Minocha. She and Geraldine had created this incredible retreat where they would go back and forth. And at one point, Geraldine had everyone in the class come up and do some toning or some sounding of their own along with a bowl. And so I actually happened to choose this particular bowl, and in front of a group of about 30 people, I started to sing as the sound of the bowl was played. And I had a most incredible, soulful, heart-opening experience. It was magical. I felt it. Many other people in the room said that they could feel it. There was actually an experience of harmonizing with the bowl, and that we were creating a song together. So I consider her to have an essence or a spirit. And although her purpose or her alchemy is named the grandmother, which is all about our female lineage and the sense that our grandmothers have lived life. They've been through it all. They've seen every little thing that you could possibly have seen. And they're able to just kind of sit in a space of stillness and a space of gratitude and appreciation for life and for all of its many cycles. So this beautiful essence of this bowl has always helped me to connect to my heart center and to that feeling of being held and being loved by my grandmother. So I'll go ahead and play her one more time. And then my last bowl is this sweet little platinum bowl. She is the essence of the divine feminine. Her tone is a lot higher. It's a high C note. So it's connecting that higher vibrational energy from above our auric field, above the 7th chakra, and moving up. And it's allowing that higher frequency energy to come down into the body, to land through the pineal and the pituitary gland in the brain, and transmit throughout the entire nervous system. So this is another sweet bowl. So as a harmony, the two C's create a binaural beat, which is where the tones are slightly different. And so your left and your right ear are perceiving the sound at a slightly different frequency, which is actually helping to entrain the brain into more cohesive patterns, into a more unified functioning. So we're getting the left and right centers, that creative, intuitive side and that analytical thinking side, and allowing them to come together and work in harmony. So that is the basis for my my beautiful sound bowls. There are so many, and of course, my bowls resonate at a frequency of 440 hertz, which is the frequency or tone of the Earth itself, of the planet. There are other bowls that resonate at 528 hertz, which is a higher frequency, a higher vibrational frequency for meditation and for DNA healing. So yeah, there's so many different varieties and ways that you can kind of play with these tools of transformation and healing that will help get us into that relaxed and replenished state.
Yeah, and you've just mentioned your mentor's website, Geraldine Glass at crystalcadence.com. I typed that in. I can just tell you at Rancho La Puerta, the crystal sound bowl healing was, I think, one of the only classes they offered every day. And there'd be like 50 people laying in the room, and 45 minutes later, everyone would be snoring. And this is something people can just experience. They don't have to pay. They can go to YouTube and see if it's something they like. Deborah says she has a bowl from Nepal. And Louise is saying, what would you recommend as a first-time buyer?
Oh, that's a really good question. I actually would recommend that you don't go onto the Crystal Tones website and just look through the catalog and then decide sight unseen, so to speak. There's a huge variety, and their catalog is enormous, so it can get a little overwhelming. And also the particular recordings that they have of the bowls on their website, it's of a particular bowl, but each bowl is made individually. So even if we were to put the exact same ingredients into the same mold and fire it the same way, the tone may be completely different. So for me personally, I would recommend that you work with someone such as Geraldine, who has a sound studio where they can play each bowl for you, and you can have a conversation about your intention of why you are wanting that bowl in the first place. It is a little bit of an investment, I have to say. It can be a little bit of a price point for some people. And I know that the frosted bowls are a great way to start, as well as the metal ones, but the quality of the sound is going to be a little bit different. So the alchemy bowls, to me, have a little bit of a pure tone of quality, and they harmonize really, really well together. The frosted crystal bowls I've worked with for years, and a lot of times they come in a chakra set, so that could be a great way to start. I also like these little tuning fork guys. It's a little bit harder to hear, especially, I'll try to bring it closer to the mic maybe. But the principle is essentially the same, that you're getting vibrational frequency traveling through your body. And you can also place these on particular spots of the body, like acupressure points, during treatment for other people or for yourself. Like on the bottoms of the feet is another really great place to be able to feel the vibration exactly on the body, as opposed to on the bowls where you're usually, in a sound bath, you would be laying down, your head would be ideally facing towards the bowls, and you'd have your eyes covered, and you'd just be able to completely go into that tranquil and relaxing state.
Very cool. KJ wanted to know, are there any book recommendations you have to learn more about Reiki?
Oh, I don't. I'm sorry. I have to say I picked up a couple of books. I can't remember the names of the authors. Most of them do have the symbols already drawn and all the explanation of how to do Reiki. But the key element that was missing for me when I was reading the book was the person, the human contact, and the sense of being able to receive that attunement from that person. So I don't know if you could actually study or get the full experience of what it is to have a Reiki attunement without a person, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Deborah, who has the bowl from Nepal, said the shop told her it took 3 months to make the bowl.
Oh, wow. And I'm wondering if Deborah's bowl is metal or frosted crystal, because I know that can make a difference as well. My understanding is that metal, especially with gongs and the singing bowls, is used to kind of cut or clear or cleanse the energy, and that the crystal is used to kind of amplify or harmonize or integrate energy.
Nice. Janet says, anxiety is anchoring a lot of people right now. Any suggestions for working to improve this level among the general public? Something we can suggest or share? Because you always have such great ideas for me with all the bath stuff you give me and the essential oils. And everything.
Oh, thank you. Yes, so there's actually a couple things that I can highly recommend. One is that you yourself take lots of deep breaths, deep, deep, deep cleansing breaths, and drink lots and lots of water, because you as an individual want to make sure that you're taking care of your own energy field and that you're staying nice and grounded and centered in your own body. And then one other way that I really like to enhance this is to add magnesium to my water through a supplement called Natural Calm. I don't know if some of you are already familiar with this, but it's a wonderful way to kind of get that deeper level of relaxation. And then a secondary way to get magnesium is through an Epsom salt bath. So I highly, highly recommend at least once a week that you take an Epsom salt bath with 4 cups of Epsom salt or more and an entire box of baking soda added to the water. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One is that the Epsom salt will help be absorbed through the skin and directly into the muscles, and it will help to give that body a nice relaxation effect through the muscles. And the baking soda actually neutralizes the pH of the chlorine and other things that our water is treated with, and it gives a nice, gentle exfoliation to the skin. So this combination with Epsom salt and baking soda was introduced to me by a cancer clinic, and it's used for patients who are going through radiation treatment. It also helps to release or discharge that electromagnetic radiation that our bodies can pick up from our cell phones, our TVs, all sorts of things. So it's a really good way. Another thing is taking lots of walks and being off of your phone or off of your device while you do that. I know a lot of people like to listen to podcasts or music when they're exercising, and I think that's wonderful. I'm not trying to say that that's not a good thing to do, but I do feel like if you can at least take a 20-minute walk once a day without any devices, and just be present to your own body, be present to the sounds around you, to the weather, the feeling and sensations of, what it is just to walk, to be in your own body and to feel movement. I think that's a really important thing. Anything that we can do to stay present and to stay in this moment, because I think a lot of times the tendency of the mind is to go off into conjecture, into, well, then this could happen, and then this could happen, and then, oh no, what's that going to mean? And we kind of can get into this spinning negative mind frame that can create all sorts of scenarios that are worst case, and yet none of that is actually happening. So we're getting caught up in this adrenaline or this anxiety that's all based on something that isn't actually happening right now, and yet the information that we get about what is happening is just enough to send us there sometimes. So that's the other thing, is I've started to take breaks altogether from reading about the latest updates. Of course, we want to be informed. Of course, we want to know what's happening, as far as how many cases have been cited in the last day or so in our local area, or all of that. I think that's good. It's good to have information and to be aware of the facts. But I also think there's a tendency to go back and check again, and go back and check one more time. And this kind of sense of like, what if something else has changed? What if something else is even worse now, or whatever. And so I think the more that we can kind of create a safe distance or space from those devices for just a little bit, even if it's to limit ourselves to once or twice a day checking those news feeds, that'll be very, very helpful. And then as far as essential oils, I can recommend a few. Lavender is probably the go-to. Everybody knows it's super relaxing. It's also very antibacterial and antimicrobial. So it's a wonderful scent to use to diffuse in your home. You can also, use a carrier oil such as jojoba or a coconut oil if you'd like, and put it on the body, put it on everywhere you like. It's just a wonderful, wonderful tool. Another one would be orange. I really love sweet orange oil. It's very uplifting. It's very inspiring. It has a lot of that creative energy in our solar plexus center, but it also really just brings that sense of liveliness and joy. So sometimes I like to mix them, actually, a little bit of lavender, maybe 1 or 2 drops with a little bit of orange essential oil, and then rub them together and then put them on my feet or put them around my neck and behind my ears. So yeah, there's so many different ways that you can play with essential oils in
Nice.
order to help keep your nervous system calm.
Absolutely. You asked about Deborah's bowl, 14 types of metal. She says when she bongs it, her vibrations go out over a foot. And Judy says that since she started eating a whole food plant-based diet, her Reiki practitioner said that her vibration is very high.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, wow. So that's an incredible bowl with 14 different metal alchemies. That's got to be pretty special, especially considering the sound resonance goes so far. That's wonderful. I'm so excited for you. What a great tool that you have. And then, yes, I think that I just want to affirm that once I really cleaned up my diet, I was kind of raised vegetarian, so I knew about how important it was to eat healthy, but I wasn't really vegan until I met Chef AJ. And once I really focused on a better diet, so many things about my life have improved and changed. And that I directly attribute that to AJ and how much she's helped me. So
Well,
thank you.
thank you. And your vibration has raised because you're just even more powerful as a Reiki practitioner now. Because I've had Reiki with other people that are not vegan and they just don't, I mean, their hands are not as warm as you. It's just not the same, you know? Because somebody had asked if you are from LA, and the answer is yes. So I'm not going to post her phone number on YouTube, but you know, we can get you that information if you'd like to. Obviously, she can't see people in person now, but she does come to you if you're in the Los Angeles area. She came to me for 15 years, and that was the only thing I didn't want. The only thing I was afraid to leave LA from is I wasn't going to find another good Reiki practitioner. So if you know of any in the Coachella Valley, let me know. I mean, we do know of Michael, but he's just not doing it right now. So yeah, we have a really interesting question from Mercy because we were talking about how to heal the world and stuff. And she says, or we were talking about how Reiki works. And she says, for Christians, how is this very different for those who believe in the power of the Holy Spirit already dwelling within us?
Hmm. So I'm agnostic. I don't have a particular religion that I prescribe to, but I do believe in the principle of God. I do believe that there is a universal energy that is connecting all of life. I also think that science describes this as the unified field. And as a Christian, I would say that this probably isn't much further from that idea of the Holy Spirit. And actually, there's a wonderful author named John O'Donohue, a poet, an Irish author, who described the Holy Spirit as the divine feminine, as the principle within the Trinity of God that is the feminine. So I just want to acknowledge that it's an important aspect. And yeah, I would say that it can be incorporated within this work as that principle or that energy that contains that essence of deep compassion and caring and kindness and gentleness that the divine feminine contains.
Yeah, very cool. So Nikki says, I don't eat salt. So is it okay to soak in it? I don't think you absorb it like just like if you put oil on your skin, it's not the same as eating it.
Right. And also it's a little bit of a different molecular structure. The Epsom salt is, I believe it's sodium chloride, but it's slightly different than the table salt that you would be eating. Although I know that you can use sea salt for baths as well, but it's not going to elevate your levels in that particular way. Yeah, I
And
wouldn't.
then, yeah. And then Dina says, I usually take a teaspoon of the magnesium calm at night in a glass of water to relax. Is it okay to take it throughout the day?
Yes, I do sip it throughout the day. I don't use as much, or like you mentioned, a teaspoon is about right. But I usually put maybe a teaspoon into a travel bottle, and I'll just drink that. 2 to 3 times a day. I don't always add it during the day, but I definitely like to on occasion, and it is very helpful. I find it doesn't necessarily make me sleepy or not want to work, not motivated. So.
You know, what is it about animals and their vibrations? So during that really big Northridge earthquake in '94, I know for a fact that my dog Scooby predicted it, but I didn't know that it was going to happen. So in other words, I had a dog at the time who you didn't know. He was a Leo like you because we met at the next dog, and he was very, very calm. Nothing floated his boat. And 12 hours before that big earthquake, he was freaking out. We didn't know what. We thought maybe he was sick, but I believe it was a Sunday, because I believe the earthquake was on a Monday. So we couldn't go to the vet. He was freaking out for 12 hours before the earthquake. You know, we kept taking him out. We didn't know, because he didn't act like this. He wasn't that kind of dog. And then we had the earthquake, and then we said he was trying to tell us. And whenever you do Reiki on us, whatever dogs we have at the time, they insist on not only being in the room, but either being on my chest or being under the table. So why are animals like, what is that? Because that's how I know this is real, because I see the difference in my pets.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So as I mentioned, animals tend to be a lot more sensitive to energy in general than we are. They don't have as much to filter or buffer them, or separate them, I should say, from nature. So they can feel, and you know, we've done lots of scientific studies about how birds travel by the electromagnetic lines of, or grid, that the earth holds. And so of course our dogs, and probably cats and other animals, are also very sensitive. Animals hundreds of miles from the shoreline have a sense of when a tsunami is coming, and all of that. So there is a kind of underlying field, I would say, whether you want to call it electromagnetic, or you want to be woo-woo about it, that's okay too. But my sense is that animals have a much stronger connection to the energy of the earth itself. And that, I'm so sorry your dog was in such distress for 12 hours. That seems like a long time for him to be aware or affected by the building energy or tension that the platelets were creating just before the earthquake happened. But that's pretty fascinating, actually, that you were able to observe that directly. And then I will say that pretty much all of my clients have that experience, that cats, dogs, even birds will come and gather next to their owners during a Reiki session. And it's because they're so deeply connected to their owners, and they want to participate in the healing and the calming, soothing energy that they receive. So I always thought of it as like having an extra helping hand there, that Bailey always provides this kind of extra sense of being cuddled and loved on during your sessions. And then same for my other clients. I've gotten so many different people who've had their cats just kind of wrapped around them, and all of that, and they get to take a nap together. So
That's so cool. Just want to read a nice comment from Joe in the UK. Thank you for all the videos. They've been a great help and mood boost. That's why I do this. I'm going live at least once a day. And I try to announce in advance who it is if I know. So I can tell you that tomorrow at 10 a.m. is Dr. John McDougall. He is going to be discussing COVID-19. So be sure to tell everybody to watch live at 10 a.m., especially if you have questions for Dr. McDougall. This is a great question, Ananda, from Cheryl. I've never asked you this, but I'm wondering what it feels like to be a Reiki healer during a session, and is it physically draining afterwards?
That is a really good question. Wow. Okay. What does it feel like during? Okay, usually it feels, I usually am just kind of open, and initially, especially at the very beginning of the session, I try to set this space and maybe talk about an intention. But then as soon as the actual energy is flowing, I kind of mentally take a step back and just let whatever needs to happen happen, meaning I kind of listen to my own intuition and go, okay, now I feel like I'm drawn to going this way on the body. Okay, now I feel like I want to do this on the body. So, and that can include using the sounding bowls or other types of modalities, such as putting essential oils on the body at the time, just kind of listening in and tuning into where my awareness is directing me for that person. And then sometimes I may actually get mental pictures or a kind of a nudge, let's say. I say the guides are speaking to me because I don't know how else to describe it. I know that, again, may sound a little woo-woo for some people, but it's not my own voice. It's not my mind thinking about what I need to do next. It's more like these nudges or gentle pushes that lead me to the next place. And then I might say something or ask a question that can open up a dialogue with the client. But usually it feels very relaxing and very calming. At some points, especially if the client starts to fall asleep, I may also go into a meditative state where I just feel very, very tranquil and literally no thoughts are coming whatsoever. And then at the end of the session, I tend to feel pretty good. I tend to feel energized.
Oh, you're frozen. You're frozen, Ananda. Can you hear me? Ananda, no audio. Ananda, there's no audio right now. Shoot. Because everybody's using the internet. Okay. Ananda?
Sorry.
Okay, I can't hear you anymore, Ananda. I can see you, but you're very quiet. Did something change? It's, you're not muted.
Oh,
Say something.
hello.
What?
Hello.
You're very low. I don't think people can hear you. Oh boy, this is not so great.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Is there anybody out there that can type what is happening? Yes, we can hear her, Evie, but not the way you can hear me. This is so frustrating. There were a couple of more great questions about how food vibrates differently. Maybe we can have, what? Say something?
Hello.
Good,
Hi.
you're back. Phew. Well, we've only got a few more minutes, but don't go away again, Ananda. So she was talking about how she feels after a session. And Louise says, I noticed all your lovely plants. How important is it to have plants living in an environment with you?
Oh, thank you. So I live in an area that's right near the foothills of LA, and there's a lot of air pollution. And I read a while ago, I can't remember, maybe the article came out 10 years ago or so on NASA, talking about the benefits of air purification through plants. So that's what I started doing. I have always collected house plants, and especially these guys, they're very common. The vine ones, they're called pothos. They are incredible air cleaners. So instead of buying a device or a technological way of purifying my air, I use plants. And I do think that they're an added benefit. I mean, they are beautiful, and they do add a lot of lovely green energy to my home. So
that's so funny, because when we lost the sound and I didn't know you were going to be coming back, Rich R says, do some Reiki on her. But you've told me you've even done Reiki like on your car when it wouldn't start, and it did. Isn't that true?
Yes, yeah, I did. It didn't work for a flat tire, unfortunately.
Oh, that is so
for
funny.
the engine, yeah. So it has helped me in some tight spots, and also including like in some difficult situations in the public. You know, when there was a confrontation or something, I've thrown a couple little Reiki symbols out there, and suddenly the energy is diffused, and people aren't quite so upset or tense about whatever it was they were bothered by. So yeah, I like to use it pretty much everywhere I go.
Well, it sounds like a great tool. Like if only you would teach an online class to all of us right now, that instead of throwing shade at people, we could be throwing Reiki, you know? And Gunther wants to know, how long are you supposed to lounge in the bathtub when you're doing the Epsom salt and the baking soda treatment? I stay probably 20 minutes, and then I take really hot baths. I must be like part lizard, because everybody said it was going to be so hot here in the desert, and I'm still waiting for what they're talking about. And so like, but tell like, should the bath be hot, and how long should we stay in it?
Yeah, I like it to be as hot as I can stand. I'm pretty fair skinned, so my skin usually gets pretty red when I first enter the bath. But by about 20 to 30 minutes, tends to start be more tepid or cool. So I would say, yeah, a good time frame is 20 to 30 minutes, but you definitely want to be there at least a minimum of 20 minutes, because that's really where you're getting the most benefit.
Very cool. Lori wants to know, do different foods have different vibrations? I would think that plants have the highest vibration. I mean, if you're eating them, not, I mean, animals have a high vibration, but as far as, how they're going to affect your body, what do you think about that?
Absolutely. I do think that different foods have different vibrations. And actually, they've done some studies. They've done a lot of testing about things that are, mixed with preservatives, and how that can affect the molecular structure and the nutritional value of the food. As well as, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Dr. Emoto's work. It was featured in the movie, oh goodness, What the Bleep Do We Know? And it talks about how vibration affects water specifically, but that kind of can be extrapolated out, so we can start to think about how everything, all molecules, have a particular vibration or frequency, we can say. And I don't know if I would say good or bad vibration. We don't have to make it quite that black and white, but let's say lighter or denser. And so of course we all understand that something that is plant-based has a lighter vibration and has a different effect in our bodies, biochemically, than something that is meat-based, which would have a heavier or denser vibration. So there's no doubt about it.
Well, I believe everything has energy because, we always say like, oh, you meet people you like, oh, they have really good energy. And some people feel like that way about me, but other people I don't resonate with. And, like I feel like certain people have a very dark energy and certain people have a very light energy. And pets in general, and well, for me, dogs have been my pet because Charles won't let me get a cat as much as I want to. Like animals seem to have just really good energy,
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Haven't met an animal I don't like.
Yeah,
Even though they may not like me right away.
and then puppies have puppy energy, and baby, it's like, so I agree that we're all, regardless, I'm not here to impose any religious or spiritual beliefs on anyone. I just like I feel like if I was in the old days, my job would be the town crier. I like to bring people information and let them decide for themselves. And if it resonates with them, great. I just wonder, like, I personally do not watch the news. Never have, honestly, and then I'm not making this up, never have watched the television news. And at one point when I was in high school, I had a government class, and every morning we had a quiz on the news the night before. And I would just call my grandfather and he would tell me stuff because I'm very, very sensitive. So what's this idea of how some people, like, for instance, I really want to watch Games of Thrones because everybody says it's good and I have the time, but it's so violent. So how do outside influences like the news, like violence on television, how does that affect people, especially people that are highly sensitive people? Because those are the kind of people that are probably going to be interested, like me, in modalities like Reiki and sound healing.
Well, they definitely affect us. I mean, I think, to be honest with you, all of us are affected by it. It's just a matter of, like you said, our sensitivity, essentially. Are we aware of what's affecting us in that moment? Or maybe are we a little bit kind of tuned off or ignorant to the fact that that is affecting us? So, yeah, I feel like something like Game of Thrones or things that are really violent, they can be incredibly entertaining, but they do leave an impression on the psyche that can have some negative repercussions, such as when we dream, or even in our relationships or other interactions, where that underlying tension or stress of what we just watched can have an effect, can have an emotional or a mental effect that we may not necessarily attribute to that particular stimulus at the time. I really believe that not only is everything energy. So if we wanted to think of it in a more scientific term, if we have the scale of colors, the rainbow of colors, red is a particular frequency or vibration, a wavelength, and purple is a different particular frequency of vibration or wavelength. So again, I'm not saying red is better or worse than purple, but they just have a different frequency. And similarly, the news or violence or even, anything that has a particularly stimulating effect. For some people, it can be horse races or, something that has that kind of like anxious or triggering kind of response in our bodies. That can definitely affect our nervous system long-term, our endocrine system. It can have all sorts of kind of ripple effects that we may not necessarily be consciously aware of at the time. So I try to be really mindful about how long I'm exposing myself to those things. And then I like to do little palate cleansers afterwards. So sorry, there's my dog. So if there is something that I'm determined to watch, like Game of Thrones, which is a great show, by the way, I think you will like it. First and foremost, if I see something violent, I try to look away. Like, I try not to actually take in all of the details of what that is. And I also try to tell myself that this is entertainment. This is not something that's actually happening, just to give myself a little separation from it. And then once I'm completely done with the episode or the newsreel or whatever it may be, I sometimes will listen to calming music, or I'll listen to something that I can dance to, or I'll go for a walk, or I'll watch a cute cat video. Just anything that I can do to kind of break up that energy that I'm still holding in my body. Because oftentimes what can happen physically when we watch TV, especially something that's really intense, is we tend to tighten or clench our muscles without even noticing, and holding our breath, or creating very, very shallow breathing. So that was one of the things that I recommended earlier, was to be very intentional about taking nice, deep, long breaths, because that actually opens up the diaphragm. It expands the muscles in the rib cage. It helps to release a lot of energy from the organs of digestion and metabolism. And it really brings that level of oxygenation up, so that our blood is circulating and we get a lot of energy from that oxygen. So it's really important to, even though we're trying to tune out a little bit and get some entertainment or get some distraction from our everyday life, it's still nice to be in our bodies and connecting to the sensations that we're actually experiencing in that moment.
Right. When your dog was barking, Stephanie said that she was just agreeing with you. And Marcia says, I feel like I vibrate at a much higher frequency since I started eating this way in October, which leads me into the last question. We have time for one more question. Thank you guys so much for watching. And make sure you tell people that if you want, you don't have to, but that I do these every day with a variety of interesting people. And tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time is Dr. John McDougall talking about COVID-19. So let's see, where is the question? I just saw it a second ago. From Evie. Is there a difference in spiritual power going out from people that adopt a plant-based lifestyle? I'm going to answer it first, and then we'll end with Ananda's opinion on this. And again, this is always just our opinions. We're not saying this is the best way or the only way. This is just another tool in the tool belt for people that are maybe suffering from some anxiety, especially with what's going on. I know it's really been beneficial for me, but I have met people that have been vegans their whole life, people, men and women in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and even kids that were raised vegan that are now in their 20s and 30s. And they feel different to me energetically when I interact with them versus people that I've met that are hunters or that do vivisection, or that, you know, are hardcore carnivores. So that's just my opinion, that they feel different. They feel lighter, more joyful, easier to be around. But I will let you close the show with answering that question.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for this opportunity and for all the wonderful questions. And I'm just so grateful for this experience. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this every day, AJ. It's been an honor, truly, to be included. I would say yes, no doubt about it. My personal experience with clients who have chosen to become vegan is that not only do they physically have so much of a benefit, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, they definitely have noticed a marked improvement. And then again, to reflect a little bit or mirror what AJ said, in general, I tend to find that people who are not plant-based have a lot of distraction in their lives, have a lot of thoughts or mental activity that can create a lot of stress or tension for them. And then a little bit of a spiritual disconnect sometimes. More of a motivation to look at, you know, how do I make more money or become more famous, or all, you know, kind of personal motivators. And instead of, you know, thinking about unity and how they can contribute or be of service to the world. So I think a lot of vegans tend to, whether it's for ethical reasons or not, they tend to have an energy or a vibrational field that is a little bit lighter and a little bit more expansive.
Wow, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for the work you do, healing people, pets, and the planet. And thank you for being vegan, and thanks all of you for being vegan. So Marcia, if you have a cooking question, I'll do this again and ask me another time. I promise I will get to it. And thank you so much for being my Reiki guru. And I've come so long since working with you. I met Ananda at the lowest point in my life when I had panic disorder and agoraphobia and lost my house and job and was not able to work for a week. And like the first session, she was so intuitive. She says, you need to be cooking. I hadn't even gone, I don't think I even I think I had gone to culinary school, but I wasn't doing anything. So you have made such a difference in my life. I swear to God, you and Doug Lyle, it's like he keeps me sane mentally and emotionally, and you keep me sane energetically and spiritually. So thank you, and namaste to everyone.
Thank you, AJ.
Okay. Love y'all. Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone.